Hey guys, welcome to The Grey Escape. I'm Natalie Gray, and it's that time to get away from it all. We're going to do it right after this. Very interesting journey we're going to embark upon today with phenomenal comedian and impressionist Jeff Burghardt, whom I have known for many years. He's a very dear friend of mine. We'll speak with Jeff about life, performing on cruise ships, being roommates with Pablo Francisco, and then we delve a little deeper. And Jeff gets personal and talks about some dark forces in his life. And I am going to reveal to Jeff and to you more of the very sci-fi, very paranormal experience that happened to me in 2012. If you listened to episode 4 of The Grey Escape with Charisse Bangs, you'll already have a taster. Well, there's going to be new info revealed on my experience here in this episode, and it is like something written by the Wachowskis, except it really happened. So let's get to it. My awesome friend, the insanely talented Jeff Burghardt.
It's a bit of a drive, not gonna lie.
Yes, it is a bit of a drive. Yeah, it is a bit of a drive.
But I haven't seen you in like 4 years, so it's like...
Yeah.
I thought, oh my gosh, okay, Jeff. In my mind, I just went, okay, you got to make priorities, you know, because it's more important to me these days, family and friends and stuff. Not so much, you know, business per se, but that kind of stuff is more important.
Well, that's good. It should be. That's how we all should be.
Yeah.
I backlit in a horrible way here. Like, is it hard for you to look at that? Do I look like a criminal backlit against the light?
No, not at all.
Okay,
I'm waiting for the for the shade, you know. You know, the shade over the light over the face. We have, come on, sing, pigeon.
I'm noticing like how well lit your face is and realize that I probably am a silhouette against the window.
No, that's from the glycolic.
You do look really good.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we left off, I remember when we did our road gigs, you were drinking green concoctions.
And now I'm getting ready to get back into that again because there's something I'm going to try and I don't know. It's called Living Fuel. It's supposed to have like 50 something essential nutrient stuff that you need. It's an entire meal that you can drink.
Wow.
It's supposed to be very nutritious for you. That's what I'm looking.
You did make me laugh upon arrival, impersonating me. You're an impersonator and you impersonated me upon arrival.
Yes. I thought you were living in the old place. And so I was at Rosecrans in the 405 about. And my MapQuest is saying, see how old school I am. My MapQuest is saying that you're near Burbank. And you go, well, I'm technically in Los Angeles, but, you know, step across the street, I'm in Burbank. And I said, oh, and you're like, oh, you're far away. You're far.
Well, you were far.
Like very far. You won't make it. Not before tomorrow.
I mean, when you said Rosecrans, I mean, I could hardly hide my horror.
No, horror. It was like horror. That's exactly the word.
Yeah, and it was 10 to 4.
It was
so you're going north on the 4. Although I guess going north on the 4.
It wasn't quite 10 to 4. It was more like, because I remember thinking it was about 3:20, because I remember thinking, well, it's going to be a hair past 3:30, because I still got that glorious 405-101 interchange. However, I will say today it's better. Then I can remember it. I haven't been there in a couple of years, but such good memories of that interchange where you just sit and crawl and crawl and crawl.
I wonder how many miles you have driven.
Today?
No, ever.
Oh God, I don't know. I had a car. Well, I still have a car. I don't ever drive it, but I need to. It's a Nissan Sentra that I've had since 1997 when I was doing a bunch of road gigs.
Okay.
You know. Matter of fact, you might remember this car. I'm sure because this goes back to 97.
Right. Well, but we mostly drove my car when we went on the road gigs, because that was how I got the gig, was like, I'll drive.
And your car is in better shape than mine was, but my car has 225,000 miles.
Wow.
I have driven that from one end of this country to the other, back, up, down, over and out.
That's a good ad for Nissan Sentra, isn't it?
It's a good, yeah.
Yeah.
It's but I don't drive it too much, but it's still runnable. But I got to get some repair work on it. So normally when I come into town for the 4 days or 3 days that I'm actually in town, I'll just rent a car. And I'm just like, there's a part of me that says, Jeff, you really should just sell it at this point. And then there's a part of me that goes, no, maybe I could still fix it up. I don't, I'm not here to impress.
So
I just drive around town, no big whoop.
You rent a car even though you still have this other car.
Yeah, but it's in storage, and then I got it. But see, I'd have to get work done on it to get the.
There you go.
Okay, well, thank you for setting me straight here. I'd have to get work done on it.
Okay. So it's really just an heirloom to you, right?
Almost. Yeah, I've had it since '96. It's a '96. It's a '93, so I had it since '96.
Wow.
I mean, back, all those gigs just all over the place. Where you drive 7 hours.
Yes, Jeff, I do.
To make $200 or something. You know what I'm saying? That's a long damn way to drive.
I think. Well, we went. You booked me for Tucson, and you were like,
Yes.
"Yeah, you can do the driving."
Yes, and we drove out. That was some years ago. Yes.
Yeah, it was to Laughs. Is that even there still? Laughs in Tucson.
I think it is.
Okay.
I think it is. I haven't been there in several years.
And there was a sister one was it Albuquerque?
It was Albuquerque.
Yeah.
We did that one too. Yep. But it was Laughs. But I haven't, pushed to get back in the room. Once you get out of that rotation, if you just kind of get out of the rotation, they kind of forget about you a little bit. You know what I'm saying? If you stay out of LA for more than, if you're not down, at the clubs all the time, they think they out of sight, out of mind. They think, I went back for Scott Kennedy's memorial service, and I saw some people I haven't seen in probably 5 years at the club there, and they were like, "Are you still in the business? Are you happy?" They said, "Are you happy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm still doing stand up. I'm just never here because I'm on the road, making a living."
Well, you've been making probably quite a good living because from as long as I've known you, almost, you've been pretty into the cruise ship circuit.
That started in about 05.
Okay.
That started in about 05. You and I met about 98, I think. 97, 98, I want to say.
Okay. So when you first went into the cruise ships, I would imagine that was a great thing because it's a lot more money, right, than clubs?
It pays better than a club does. They pay for your air.
Right.
And you don't have to pay for food. You don't have to, because you never consider that stuff when you're like on the road.
Of course.
But there is still a part of me that keeps some toes in the clubs because it's a different animal. You don't have to watch quite what you say like at the clubs, and your audience is different, or at least the ships that I'm playing.
I mean, different. Are you doing a retirement set on the cruise?
Not really, but I'm doing old school. Some of that stuff is old school, like some of the impressions, like what I grew up with. For example, like Paul Lynde from Hollywood Squares.
Okay.
That voice is Seth MacFarlane does him when he does, Roger the alien on American Dad. Is who he modeled that after. But he talks like this and whatever. So I've been doing him since I was like 9 years old. Right. And that generation that I play on the ships totally know that. And it still makes me laugh when I listen to, go on YouTube and watch videos of him or just some of his one-liners from Hollywood Squares. Just still makes me laugh because he was just a funny man. Oh, and I was on a ship after my show out on the sun deck, sunning myself, as I do occasionally, drinking a pina colada or whatever. And this guy in a motorized cart or a motorized wheelchair comes up to me and hands me his room key. Uh-oh. And I'm like, what is this? And I noticed his last name was Lynde, Lynde. He goes, that was my second cousin.
Oh,
Paul was my second cousin. I go, no kidding. I was first going to go, hey, baby, I don't swing that way. Hey, baby. But a second cousin, and I looked at him in the face, and I go, "Oh yeah, I can kind of see the resemblance there." When even at second cousins, I was kind of telling, the teeth that he had, and I'm surprised he didn't go, "Yeah." He goes, "There's just a couple of us left. There's just a few of us left." But that was cool.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Cousin or second cousin coming up to me after
some real lineage there.
Very much so. Even the younger folks still get a kick out of that voice because they know the voice. Do you know what I'm saying? The voice.
Yeah, well, they grew up probably with their grandparents playing it and stuff.
Well, it's not quite that old, but
sorry, Jeff.
That's all right because I was a little kid, when Hollywood Squares was on, and he used to crack me up. No question about it. In fact, I got to do a radio show with Peter Marshall one time where he read the questions and I got to answer them. Can I tell you a funny story?
Yes.
Okay. Peter Marshall was on one of the ships doing question and answer with the audience, and he played 10 minutes of outtakes from Hollywood Squares, and he said, and my buddy said, Jeff, the funniest one, that never made it to air, mind you, he said, the funniest one, he goes, Paul, he goes, the answer is cock robin. What's the question? He goes, what's in your mouth, Batman? But he said the audience laughed and laughed and laughed.
Yeah, that's very funny. Yeah, that's brilliant.
What's in your mouth? I could just see it. I've looked for it. I've looked for it on internet. I can't find it, but I'm sure it's there.
How many cruises have you done now? Have you kept a tally?
God. And you know the weird thing, Natalie? I just started doing the ships just as a one-off.
Wow.
Because I was doing nothing but clubs. And then it was like, okay, yeah, there's some buddies of mine that do clubs and they do ships all the time. I said, I can do a ship now and again. Sure.
Right.
Why not? I started going, then I showcased for all the ship people. And it was just one of those strike it rich kind of sets, 3.5 hours into a 4-hour-long showcase.
Oh, my goodness.
You know what I'm saying? And I did 12 minutes and got a standing ovation.
Wow.
Yeah. It was just everything, every cylinder hit. And my buddy, Bruce Smirnoff, goes, Jeff, you'll never see land again? You know Bruce?
I know. I probably have crossed paths with him, I'm
he
sure.
Used to live out here, tall guy. And he talks like this. I'm just saying. You got to be crazy. I'm just saying.
And you barely have ever seen land again. I mean, every time I'm around, you're traveling.
It's either, we figured it out 320 days out of California last year.
Good grief.
Yeah. So it's either ships or in Houston with the family or clubs. Mostly ships, some clubs, yeah.
Would you say it's been exclusively positive that your career has gone on such a cruise trajectory, or have there been some sacrifices there?
Exclusively positive.
Make that sound again.
Exclusively. I don't know. Exclusive. I mean, it's pretty fun, and I enjoy what I do. Do you know what I'm saying? And the workload is not quite, what the clubs were.
How much time do you do?
Like, for example, I'll do 2 shows, one at 8, one at 10. I normally go 45, 50 minutes. Sometimes if I'm really feeling it, I'll go an hour. And then sometimes and sometimes that's it for the week.
Oh, wow.
And then sometimes I'll do a variety show in a couple of days, or they'll have me like be one of the judges for some competition they're having or something. They'll ask me to do that. I can say yay or nay if I want.
Okay. I bet you love that.
Not all the time,
okay.
But sometimes I'll do it as a favor to somebody if someone's been like nice. Do you know what I'm saying? Or been, because you don't have to. It's not in the contract.
Isn't everybody nice to you?
I would hope so. They need to be, because I'm a very nice person. I'm like, no, not everyone is nice. But whatever. So I'm learning these days, I'm getting, I don't know, I'm in a pretty decent place.
Are you maturing?
I think so. And that's so hard to believe, only at the age of 38. That's so hard to believe. That was a couple of years ago, but.
Well, you only look that age.
Thank you.
Because of your liquid fuel.
Actually, I'm going to get back on it because I haven't been taking it. But I've been doing other things.
Like what? Meditating or something?
Watching my weight. Yeah, a little bit of that too. And watching my weight, trying to stay exercise at least 3 or 4 times a week in the gym, I try to do that. Sometimes, I don't drink as much as I did. Not that I did.
I didn't.
In my 20s, I never
yeah.
did. Not at all. And then when I get on the ships, when I, for about, you get on the ships, you start doing, a shot here. I was running like I was a 21-year-old.
Do you get free drinks?
Sometimes, but I mean, if you go down to the officer's bar or something, sometimes you don't even have to pay for one because they'll be like, what are you drinking? What are you having?
Right.
So it was like a big party.
Probably passengers want to buy you a drink when they see you.
But I was the one who was like, sometimes playing after a show, Mr. Big Star.
Oh, I see.
I was like, all right, have a drink. You want a drink? Have a drink. All right, baby, have a drink. Oh, who would drink you?
And so when did you get into meditating?
I've always been a prayerful person since I was a little. I don't meditate with the legs crossed and what you call it, but I pray like all the time. So I consider that,
Well,
But
wait
that-
a minute. Wait a minute. If you're praying,
Yeah.
isn't that separate than meditating?
One could be the same. They're two separate things, but one could be like, for example, I was raised Catholic. Catholics are Christians, but not all Christians are Catholics, kind of thing. I was
Okay.
raised Catholic. I'm
Okay.
not like diehard, but I'm like, yeah. So I pray like all the time. That can be considered meditation with your condescending tone.
Well, I don't know if it can,
Well, I
Jeff.
don't know. It's like Boris Johnson. Well, I don't know.
Aren't you supposed to sort of sit still in a quiet room and everything for meditating?
Not necessarily. You can do that while you're sitting in traffic. Lord knows I had enough time coming over here.
So you said.
So I said, well, that and a stop to get the chicken tacos. But other than that, it didn't stress me out like it normally does.
Okay.
Like with the traffic in LA on that 405, it's still pretty hideous. But it's not, I still say it's not as bad as it once was. Because I just remember thinking it was a freaking nightmare. And now it's like, it just seems to flow a little better. Not all the time, mind you.
Well, they've widened the freeways.
Then it's,
so.
then that's something. Because I don't remember, because I can remember just being hideous, like a parking lot.
Yeah.
And it still gets that way because, I looked at the cars coming back, going on the southbound side.
So getting back to your unique hybrid praying meditation
Yes.
style that you have, it's just interesting because I found out recently that a whole bunch of people that you would look up to their careers and go, wow, they know what they're doing, are all into transcendental meditation.
Okay.
Jerry Seinfeld is one of them. And then I saw recently, Howard Stern and a lot of entertainers do transcendental meditation. And I just thought, wow, that's really interesting. And they've done it for a long time. Jerry's done it for over 40 years. Did you know that?
I did not know this.
No, so there you go. So you're onto something. Although, frankly, I think you need to put a little more time into learning about what you're doing.
No, what I'm doing is working for me.
I don't think sitting in traffic is quite how it works.
You'd be surprised where you can pray and just, meditate. You can do it. You'd be surprised.
Jeff and El Pollo Loco.
No, this was not El Pollo Loco. It was somewhere else.
Okay.
It was somewhere else. It was it was a mom and pop owned joint that I went to. Anyway.
All
but
right.
be
We
that as it
digress.
may.
Okay. So back to your cruise ship, though. The reason I said is it all positive is because you're obviously, I've always been a fan of yours and been thrilled to work with you in the past because it's just a delight watching you. Truthfully, you're an amazing show to watch.
Thank you.
You are probably the most crowd-pleasing comic that I've seen. I've seen you destroy at the Improv in Hollywood and destroy on the road. So it seems that anywhere, any city, you're able to be very, very magical. And when you see someone that talented, you think, oh my gosh, well, they're going to be on television very soon. And I wonder, because you've been out of town so much doing cruise ships, do you feel that you've missed any opportunities? Have you had to pass anything up that you weren't in town for?
No, not really. I did a bunch of, from about, let's see, 96 to about 2005. I did like a bunch of, now it may not be a bunch to some, but I did like 10 or 11 TV spots.
Okay.
Cable and network and, and then, but I was like, no, I don't know. And you get out of the loop and, you're just kind of like, you go down to the Improv or whatever, and you don't feel like hanging out as much as you did. Do you know what I'm saying? It's it used to be back. Well, you need to be seen. You need to be, and there is some truth to that. You know what I'm saying? Because like we said, out of sight, out of mind. But I'm just like, it's not as important to me as it was.
Okay.
It's just like, and I taped something in 2012, comedy.tv.
Okay.
You know it?
I don't actually, but that's, doesn't mean anything.
Oh, it's just it's the same people who do Comics Unleashed.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's the same, and man, that was one of 8 episodes that didn't air.
Oh.
I was disappointed because I kicked ass on that show.
Yeah, well, you always kick ass.
I know, but it was like, I remember thinking I was better for it. I was better for it then than I was 6 years earlier.
Right.
You know, because I knew how to do it better. I knew
Yeah.
how to, there's something to be said for, being well cooked.
Yeah, absolutely.
As opposed to, being on television when you don't know exactly how to do it. There's little art form that goes to it, I think.
You're seasoned now.
Yeah.
You're truly seasoned.
So, and then there was another one I turned down because I didn't think I would do a good job with it. I just didn't think I would do.
Well, what was that?
It's not important. But what is important? I just didn't think I would be, that was not my strong suit. Do you know what I'm saying? I would come across looking stupid. James Garner used to say, I used to love his quote. He said, as long as I can do a job and not embarrass myself, then I'm happy. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'm just like, if I don't think I'm good for something, or if I don't think, then I'm just like, nah,
And why wouldn't you have been good for it?
Because it's out of my element. It was out of my element. It's, if I'm doing like straight stand up, and I'm just doing that however many minutes, whatever, and I can put it together and, rehearse it, pop, 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 to where that's my strength. But this was like, it was different. Do you know what I'm saying? It was not that I'm opposed to anything different, but it was like, it was not my strength. And if you're only, I didn't want to come across looking, like, you know what I'm saying? Like I didn't know what I was doing, or like, just, if you're not playing to your strength, it's like you're just kind of fluttering out in the wind a little bit.
Well, was it something where you weren't able to plan and rehearse, one of these set list kind of improvised shows, or?
Yeah, it was more along the lines of that. Improv, I can ad-lib pretty well, but I mean, improv is a different game. It's a different animal.
Okay.
I think.
Like a Whose Line Is It Anyway type of a show? Was it something like
it was
this?
something, but it was more reality based kind of thing. But I was just like, I just didn't think I'd be good for it.
Huh, okay.
I just didn't think, so I disqualified myself.
Was it The Bachelorette?
No, heavens no. I'm so not into the whole reality thing. I think it's, the reality, really, it's all scripted reality. It's just, I'm just not into it. But anyway, so I disqualified myself, which is so weird because in the earlier days, you know what I'm saying? God, someone offers you a spot on TV, you jump the first chance.
Of course.
But when you get older, you go, no, not that you're picky and choosy, because Lord knows, this ain't, I don't have the space to be picky or choosy, but I kind of do a little bit.
Well, you're in charge of your own career.
Right.
You
can.
Yeah. Did you try out for Last Comic Standing?
I did.
How did that go?
They called me back for a second.
Okay.
And I don't know. I hadn't heard anything, so.
Okay.
So they called me back for a second. They flew me up to New York.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
I thought so, too.
Was that like the last round? So are you still kind of waiting now then on something, or is it already passed?
No, that was like 8 months ago, 9 months ago. So I'm not waiting.
Okay.
And then I just thought to myself, maybe I would be better for it the following year, unless there's a rule about auditioning.
No, I think
again.
you're allowed to go repeatedly.
Sure. I mean, but I just thought to myself, because man, if you do get on that show, you've got to churn out some, you gotta churn out some, television eats material like a beast, like a beast.
Yes.
So you've really got to, put some stuff together. Do you know what I'm saying? So I thought maybe I would be better for it the following year. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. You seem to like this idea of that things in the future might be better timing.
Absolutely.
For you.
I'm just, because you got one time, do you know what I'm saying, to make a first impression. Do you know what I'm saying? And if you're not ready, and if you're not, and I'm in no rush, obviously.
Apparently you're not
I'm in no rush. So you know what I mean? I'm not in any rush. So I'm just like, I would much rather go like ready prepared than like unprepared and look,
Can I just clarify? Did you say you're in a rush?
I am not in a rush.
So you're not in a rush?
No. I'm like, but like I said, so I'm just, I think there is, whatever.
So are you saving money? Are you doing anything with all this big banging bucks of the cruise ships?
I am trying my best.
Besides buying drinks for people?
No, I don't do. I still do that occasionally, but I don't. So I'll have my couple of glasses of wine now and again, but that's about as far as I go.
Yeah, you saving for anything?
I'm putting money away for IRA and whatever, and
for when you do that TV gig in 10 years that you feel ready for.
When I do that TV gig, so I'm just like, no, but I mean, TV is not the know-all be-all. I mean, it's because it's just I've seen, it's stellar when it's on, when it's working. Do you know what I'm saying? It's stellar, but I've seen people just be really big for about 10 minutes. Do you know what I'm saying? And then you don't hear from them again. Do you know what I'm saying? It gives you some pause.
Are you afraid of that?
I'm not afraid of that but I sometimes think that you get one shot and you only get one shot. Do you know what I'm saying?
What if you're wrong, Jeff? And what if you can have multiple shots and you could be getting on with this thing now?
I haven't seen it happen very often. I've seen it just like a handful of times, but it's not enough times to where it makes me go, oh yeah, I can just rest on that. I'll always get another, because just from experience, anyway. I don't know what we're going on about.
Well, we're just learning about you and your career and how you're steering it.
I'm steering it.
Well, you're clearly sort of steering it away from television. I mean, you're not volunteering yourself up, it looks like.
The thing is, I'm just never in town,
right.
Is the problem. I would probably go out and do some more TV stuff, but I'm just, you come back in town and you're only in town for a couple of days, and you're exhausted from flying from Italy. You fly from Greece. I've been all over this world and back.
All right, Mr. Big Man.
Seriously. You know how it is, honey. The booze, the pills,
right.
The traveling.
You're best friends with James Bond. We get it.
Seriously, I mean, literally, I'm just, every other time I sit down, I'm buckling up to take off.
Right.
And it's not a brag per se, but it's that wears you out more than the actual show. So doing the shows. Before
you were 38, did you used to envision yourself on shows, for example, like Saturday Night Live?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And so did you ever try out?
Yeah, I sent a tape one time. Oh, and then I remember I talked to an agent. I sent two of them to his office, because they misplaced, quote unquote, the first one.
Okay.
And then I sent another one. And then he was like, I'm tearing this office up trying to find your tape and this. And I'm like, yeah. And then I finally talked to his assistant or whoever. And then the assistant starts chiding me for, well, you really might want to get on it earlier next year, with the whatever. And I'm like, well, I sent this tape a month ago to you guys, I got that. So I was just like, Did
you send again the following year?
No.
Why?
No, I looked and I just go, I looked at my tape and I go, that's not the strongest stuff I've ever done.
Okay.
So I'm just like, but anyway, so.
Well, you do all these brilliant impressions.
Thank you.
I mean, a show like a Mad TV or a Saturday Night Live or something like that, I mean, it just seems you would have belonged quite naturally on a show. You would think.
And I auditioned for there's one, I forget, it was one of these variety shows. And I remember the guy, I went into his office and him and his assistant, and she was sitting there. And anyway, and I just did really well just in front of the two of them doing the impression or whatever. And he put his arm around me and he goes, you killed it. He said, you could not have done any better. He goes, it's just going to depend on the breakdown of the cast. So
okay.
I don't know what that's speak for, but
I think it's probably they do have like a quota of they need so many guys like this and so many girls like this. And
I had an agent tell me one time, we already have you.
Oh, that's horrible.
We already have you. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. But I think they're the tall, skinny white guy. I think, the funny white guy with the voices, I think is what she was getting at.
Let's dig in, Jeff, to the origins of your comedy. When did it start? I mean, were you a funny kid?
Yeah. When I was a little boy, I can remember 6 or 7 years of age doing impressions of my aunts and uncles as Archie and Edith from All in the Family from back in the day. Because I had one uncle who was just like Archie Bunker and one aunt who was just like Edith.
Okay.
And so I was doing that. And so they were all around the table. I had to have been 6 or 7 because they came to Houston, where I was born and raised back then, in the 70s at some point. But anyway, the point is, could have been 79. Maybe it was 82, 83. I can't remember. But anyway, be that as it may. And I remember just knocking them dead with, especially when I got to Edith. I just had a knack for it when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And just always just thought, like Rich Little and people like this, I just thought it was so cool when people could mimic other people.
Yeah.
I just thought that was very early, like 6, 7. And then about 9 is when Paul Lynde, I discovered him. And I remember his laugh. I used to be able to do his laugh and do his voice. And
that's amazing to be so young.
yeah. But I find that when I talk to people who can sing, dancers and whatever that I work with all the time, they all, 9 out of 10 will say they knew it when they were little kids.
And when did it cross over into professional?
A couple of months out of high school.
Wow.
Yep. I used to go to the comedy club in Houston with my mom. The very first time I went up was December 11th of 1988.
Wow.
I was a child. I was still a teenager. And this was in Houston. And I'll never forget, I'll name drop for a second, but I sit down, I do my little 5 minutes, and I was doing stuff like, this is back when George Sr. was in the White House with Barbara. And I was doing jokes. I modeled myself as like a Jay Leno. I was doing jokes like, you really don't see too many mother and son teams anymore. It was pretty lame. And then I was doing my Esther Roll impression from Good Times because I used to love the show. But anyway, I sit back down and Janine Garofalo, you remember her?
Yeah.
Was sitting behind me wearing her leather jacket, being the hipster. And she taps me on the shoulder. She goes, "Was that your first time on stage?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "You're going to be very funny one of these days." She goes, "I don't say that to many amateurs."
Wow.
And I was like, that was a nice thing to say.
Yeah.
But I go, "Don't touch the merchandise." I didn't say it. But that was a nice thing to say.
Yeah, that's very nice. That's a great story.
Yep.
And so you were very much clearly a natural, and then you were getting your gigs. And when did you start going on the road?
It's a year later.
Wow, flipping heck.
Yeah.
And who were you? I'm assuming you were opening for people at first. So who were you opening? Anybody we know?
The first big name that I opened for, if I'm remembering correctly, was in about 94. That was Elaine Boozler.
Okay.
In Houston. That was at the Arena Theater. And before that, it was, you were the young guy. It took me about 3 years before I started becoming consistent. Because I'd have one good show, then one not so hot show. One good show, and it was just like, I can remember one time I had 3 bad shows in a row, or 3, because I was, and the club owner, who's a buddy of mine, comedian as well, he goes, "Are you going to have a show this week?" When you're opening, that makes you feel awful. Do you know what I'm saying? And he was a buddy. He's a friend to this day. He's a club owner, or was a club owner for years and years. But anyway. So
how were you learning to write? I mean, who were you looking at that were your comedy idols that you thought, okay, that structure
Billy
works?
Crystal.
Okay.
First one off back in the 80s when he used to do stand-up, that's what I was wanting to do. The way he did characters and the way he did, I just thought that was great. And I used to when I was 13, even as early as 13, and Billy Crystal be on some talk show or something, I even liked the way he dressed. I would even thought he even dressed cool. You know what I'm saying?
He dressed always smart.
Yeah, and he dressed like with the sweater with the blazer on top of it. Mind you, this is the 80s, when you can get away with that. But so Billy Crystal was my man for, back then. But writing, I thought of myself in terms of like a Jay Leno type of, but that's not really my shtick. You know what I'm saying? I'm not joke.
Do you sit and write on paper, or do you work it out on stage?
I write on paper. It starts on a napkin normally, or an idea, or now it's on the iPhone, the notepad on the iPhone.
Okay.
But back in the day, it was on napkins. All the time I had a little stack of notes and ideas and scribble. And
who else were you into? Were you a Steve Martin guy?
I thought he was physically brilliant, Steve Martin. Still. Even that movie he did with Queen Latifah, where he's dressed up all hip hop, doing the, that dance on the, where he's dressed, with the hoodie and the whole thing, and I'm just thinking he's a 60-year-old man, what I'm saying, still doing this. And I just thought it was just brilliant. I think he's brilliant.
Well, you're a very physical comic too.
Thank you.
So
Not quite as much as I used to be, but yeah.
Wait till you turn 40.
Yeah, seriously. Oh, God. Do I have to wait that long? I'm serious.
So no other inspirations you can think of?
Oh, there was definitely some Robin Williams.
Okay.
I think, everyone of my generation was at least inspired it a little bit. Even if it wasn't, just the way he delivered it, the way it was just boom, boom, boom. And, there were some shows he did that were just, I remember he did one in 88. And what was the name of his show? David Frost hosted the deal. Him and John Ritter were the co-hosts. And it was in 88, I remember that. And he did, I think, the 6 minutes of just the tightest 6 minutes I think I've seen. Because it was just, he was, prime. And he was just boom, 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 boom. You know what I'm saying? I thought that was brilliant. So there was a little bit of Robin Williams. And the great thing is I got to meet him a couple of years ago.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, I did. And I got a picture. In fact, I'll show you on my cell phone of he and I got to meet Jonathan Winters a couple of times as well.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. And I got to perform for, I used to hang out with this group called the Army's Army. And they meet the second Tuesday of every month. And they have dinner and they bust each other's chops. And they'll stand up at their own individual where they're seated. And some guys will stand up and do shtick. Some guys will do whatever. And so in this one room, man, you would have like Harvey Korman, Ronnie Shell, all the classics from television that you grew up with. Don Knotts, Dick Van Patten, God bless him, who was very nice, by the way. Dick Van Patten saw me at the Improv one night. And when we got to the meeting a week or so later, he stood up and said, I can't do a Dick Van Patten impression, but he goes, I saw him at the Improv. He was brilliant. He was brilliant. He was just raving. I just thought that was so cool.
That's lovely.
But, he was great. And let's see, Don Knotts was very nice. Don Adams would be there. Phyllis Diller would be there. Jonathan Winters was there. Peter Marshall from Hollywood Squares. What's his name? Let's see, Louis Nye, some of the old school from Steve Allen's show. Back in the day, And we got along very well because I just respected that school. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's an element of your craft that it definitely pays homage to that era.
I respect, I talk to some kids today and they don't know anything past Bill Hicks or Sam Kennett. They don't know anything past that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I got the pleasure of meeting both of them.
Yeah, that really is fantastic.
Man, I tell you what, you tell a comic that you met Bill Hicks. Wow. A younger comic. They're like... Yeah,
I've worked with Dwight Slade, who is
yes.
his best friend, but I did not meet Bill Hicks ever.
I got to do... he was a brilliant mind, no question about it. I got to do an impression for him of a mutual friend from Houston, comedian Ron Schock.
Okay.
You remember Ron Schock?
Yeah, I do know that name, yeah.
And he used to talk like this, Jeff, really great, ha, ha, ha. That's how he do it. So I was doing, at the time, John Fernetti goes, hey, do your Ron Schock for him, and I go, Bill, it's really great to meet you, ha, ha. And I think I did the Lord's Prayer as Ron Schock reading the Lord's Prayer. And Hicks got that grin, that big grin that he would get across his face. He got a big kick out of that. I didn't get a chance to talk to him just other than hello, you know what I'm saying? So it was, but Kinnison, I met him a couple of times too. He was really nice. But I was a young kid coming out of Houston.
Yeah.
A young kid coming out of Houston. So, but I do have respect for that school that came. Milton Berle, got to meet him. He was 90 years old when I met him at the Friars. We got to sit down for about. I think that was divine providence. I really do, because I met him and we were showing up there. Me and guy Howard Storm, who's another comedian from back in the day, members of the Army's Army. But anyway, he used to direct Mork and Mindy and Full House, and this guy was in the know. So anyway, he knew Milton, and he says he's normally at the Friars Club in L.A., which I don't think is there anymore, but he said he goes to lunch there like 3 or 4 times a week, so there's a good chance you could run into him. And I just wanted to meet Milton Berle because, he was an icon, and he was still funny. He was 90 years old when I met him, and he was wearing the big Swifty Lazar glasses and the cigar, He was still funny. And there was about 5 minutes there when we were at this big round table. You have middle-aged men hanging off every word that he said. You know what I'm saying? Even past middle-aged men hanging out just because he was the first TV star,
Yeah.
And anyway, one by one they went, and the one went to the bathroom, So for about 5 minutes, it was just he and I sitting right next to each other. Wow. And I said to him, there is a look that you do that I borrow from you when a joke bombs, when you just kind of make And he does that face like a stink face, like if a joke just lays there, like that stink face. Like, I just don't want to be associated with it. Believe me, I've seen this look many times. But anyway, and it just made me hit the table. I said, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And he knew exactly what I was talking about. And we talked, show business, old names, Sammy Davis, and we talked all that. And then he goes, Jeff, and he had his cigar unlit, more of a prop anyway. He goes, say hi to Mutt for me. Right? And I didn't laugh, right? He goes, have you ever heard of Mutt and Jeff? And I go, yeah. And he goes, why didn't you fucking laugh? I laughed at your clothes, which is so old school show business. And then I said, Milton, man, thank you so much for letting me sit here and talk to you. I said, you're a blessing. I said, man, I shook his hand. And, a buddy reminded me, when you shake Milton Berle's hand, you know how many celebs
everybody
that man knew.
Yeah.
Or made or was on his show or whatever. Everyone of this, of the last 60 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Marilyn Monroe, John Kennedy, Elvis, you name it, Sinatra.
Yeah, he was like a Bob Hope type of a level icon.
So I got to shake his hand, and that was great. And he goes, but still, he's a ball buster. He was like, he goes, thank you, you're welcome, thank you. And as I walk away, I just get far enough away to where I can still hear him, and he goes, is he gone? Prick. He puts the cigar back in his mouth. Oh God, he was a ball buster till the day he died, I'm sure. That old school was. Rickles was the same way, just a ball buster. And he's still around. He's 88, I think. Rickles.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Met him too. That was great. He's one of he makes me laugh every freaking time I see him on like panel like Jimmy Kimmel or something like that. When he comes out and just starts talking, God, dog, he's a funny man. He's one of my faves. Dangerfield was one of my faves too. Jeffrey Ross, I think, is very funny and a very nice guy. I worked with him several times. Nick Swartzen, I think, is very, very funny. And I like Adam Sandler's stuff. I love his movie choices and what he does. Same thing with Ben Stiller. I met him, he probably wouldn't remember, but I met him, God, Lord, 23 years ago, 21 years ago. Me, him, and Janine were driving around her car in L.A. And this is before she started making a lot of money, so... She, it was her old car. Like, I think it's from Houston, even.
Did you tell her about when she'd been behind you at the club and tapped you?
Oh, no. I'm sure she remembered, because we used to hang out, like, in Houston now and again. So me, her, and Ben Stiller, we were all driving around L.A. one day.
And what was that like?
I remember. It was just like, I was not familiar with the Ben Stiller show.
Okay.
Or maybe this was even before the Ben Stiller show. She said, you should take him on a tour of the studio that he was working at. It was a studio. And he made a comment about, it just depends on how my career was going on that particular day, to her. And she thought that was so funny. Do you know what I'm saying? I didn't quite get it myself. Do you know what I totally get it now. Do you know what I'm saying? But back then I was, such a green pea. A green banana.
Well, what does that actually mean?
Meaning, like, it just all depends how my career is going. If it's going stellar, okay, maybe not. But if nothing else is going on,
Oh, I see. Okay.
You see what I'm saying? But she laughed. She thought that was so funny. I get it now. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But at the time.
It's a long burn, that joke.
It's a long burn. I told you I'm in no rush.
Apparently
I'm
not.
in no rush.
Well, you're just waiting till old-time comedy comes back in fashion again, and then you're going to be ripe.
Well, I got some jokes I'm going to tell you folks.
Jeff Burghardt will be ripe for the picking.
Ripe for the picking, no.
Well, you encapsulate all of those people. It just, it breathes from your whole act, this sort of tribute to that era. There's a classic quality I find about your shows.
Oh, well, thank you.
That I think's really rare,
But no, having said that, I still make some relatively recent references. I'll come out and say I look like Quagmire from Family Guy, or I'll do a Matthew McConaughey, which I'm still working on, because we're both from Texas, not too awfully far from each other. Because I've had people say, I can hear him in your voice, I can hear it. But we were, me and Bruce were sitting, who is it that's really impersonatable? Not that I'm strict impressions,
right.
You know what I'm saying? In fact, I used to do Bernie Mac all the time. I used to open my show with Bernie Mac. And man, that used to just go great. Audience do not expect it out of this face coming. Ain't had a bishop in this motherfucker. Let me break it down. And I've surprised once.
Who is impersonatable now, though?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Everyone's so milquetoast anymore. It's just back in the day, people had distinct personalities, distinct voices, very, if you want to go back as far as like Jack Palance, or you wanted to go, I don't go back this far, but I mean like Humphrey Bogart and James Cagney and all those guys, Jimmy Stewart, they had distinct voices. You know what I'm saying? I mean, maybe because they came from the stage. I don't know.
There is something to that, though, the lessening of distinction.
Yeah.
Because I've studied it. When I was back in England, they talked about, how in England there's almost a record number of dialects, but because of the mass amount of media, that it's literally diluting the regional dialects because people are influenced by American television. Little kids in England are doing American accents because they're little shows they watch on TV or American shows. And it makes sense. So all those regional dialects in America and in the UK, they're being heavily influenced by television now.
We had to strain our brains, Bruce and I did, about who is really impersonatable now. Oh, who was that girl I was watching? I've worked with her before, and I cannot think of her name. She does a Jennifer Aniston. She does a
Heather McDonald.
Yeah, I think she's great.
Yeah, she's a very talented.
She was doing Jennifer Aniston. Who else? Drew Barrymore and whatever. I thought she was great. But I came up with two. Owen Wilson,
right,
and Vince Vaughn. Owen probably more so than Vince Vaughn. But you could do a Vince Vaughn though. But it's just, and then sometimes your voice will lend itself to a certain impression, and sometimes it won't. Right. I used to do like Dennis Hopper. I used to be able to do a spot on Dennis Hopper, back in the day. I used to him and Christopher Walken and all that. And I still do Walken. Walken still goes over. I open the show with Christopher Walken in Spanish.
Sí, el hotel es grande, gracias. Ustedes mucho punto, okay.
It's kind of different. But,
well, that's a thing that you do. That's why, you've always stood out to me. You take an impression, but you do something really bizarre and unusual with it.
Like Aka the Tom Jones.
Everything that you do, you
where
put them...
10 minutes is,
ooh, I think that deserves a button. Some lovely ladies here.
ooh.
All of them, you'd put them in an interesting environment or situation so that it's a layer. You're not just impressed by, wow, that's a great impression. It's this wonder of, look what he's doing with that impression.
Well, I have to, because most of my impressions are really weak. Let's just be honest. I'm a weak performer. I remember that time on Jerry Lewis Telethon, Don Rickles. So this is probably 10 years ago, but Jerry Lewis goes, oh, okay. And he goes, oh, one more thing. Don Rickles has something to say. He goes, and Don has his face in when they used to have a bunch of those monitors that made one big screen, And he goes, Jerry, I just love what you're doing for the kids. And, this. He goes, I have one more thing to say to Ed McMahon. And he gets real close to the camera. He goes, you're a weak performer. I know that's the only reason he called in, just to bust Ed McMahon's chops. But see, that kind of score I like, as long as if it's not mean, you know what I'm saying? That's like you being English. I talk about all the time the British humor, how I like the British humor, how the dry sarcasm you guys have. I said it's not necessarily mean, it's just very well placed. I did a show on a ship one time and just really did great. There was no debate whether the show went well or not. It was across the board.
Right. You were not weak.
No, I was not weak. I'm saying that because... if it was like, well, some people liked it, some people didn't. No, this was across the board. This was solid.
You could have got laid.
I could. Well, let me finish the story, Natalie. The point is, well, there is a lunar eclipse now and again, but the point is, so I'm walking and I ran into some elderly English people as I'm walking on deck 4, totally happy with myself, with the show. I'm grinning from ear to ear. And the lady comes out and she goes, oh, we saw your show. We thought you were so funny. We really enjoyed your show. And I go, well, thank you, sweetheart. That's very nice of you. And here comes the old man with a beard and a cane out of a movie. He goes, yes, it was a good show. The only thing missing was material and timing. That's what he said, which is such a British English thing to say. Do you know what I'm saying? Because it made me laugh out loud.
Well, I got to tell you a brief story on behalf of a friend of mine who did a cruise ship, and the booker made a horrible mistake. He had said it was a young cruise. Well, it turned out it was over 70s.
Oh, okay.
So my colleague did this cruise ship and he died a miserable death.
Sure.
He just never performed
They're two different animals.
Hundreds of 70-year-olds before. He said people were falling asleep and it was abysmal. So this was day one of his cruise and he was stuck on the ship. And of course, you can't escape. So people are coming up to him in the hallways and this Brit came up. And he comes up and he goes, hey, you're a comedian, aren't you? Oh, you died up there. But he didn't stop. He goes, no, but I mean, you really died.
Oh, God, that's horrible.
I wanted to help you. I wanted to get up there and help you. Yeah, I loved that. Every time he told me that, I loved picturing him.
Sometimes when a comic is bombing, it's one of the funniest things in the world. Certain comics will make hay when the sun is shining.
Right.
Johnny Carson was brilliant at that. If a joke didn't go over, the way he would do his takes and look over at the band like, okay, here's something else they may not like. Or Rip Taylor. I stayed to see his act. I was working at the Improv, and he was next door at the Flamingo, the Pink Flamingo, working with the Rockettes. He goes, I've only got to give you folks 10 minutes. And then he holds up a prop, and I think it was a water hose with panties on it, women's panty. He goes, look, pantyhose. Get it? Pantyhose. And he threw it down. He goes, 5 more minutes. I've only got to do 5 more minutes. Oh, my God. That made me laugh out loud. Because, Rip was brilliant when his jokes weren't going. You know what I'm saying? Are you getting these jokes? Hello? Can you hear me at all in the back? Hello? Folks, what is an audience or a funeral? Pay attention, please. Are we still
we're perfect. We're perfect. I was just checking that it was still working because you were doing some weird exploratory of the microphone, and I wondered if it.
Okay, let's qualify a weird exploratory. I was tapping the mic to do like Rip Taylor does. I don't know.
But then you looked at it weird and put your hands around it.
I don't swing, baby.
You put your hands around it like it was some chalice.
I thought I broke it because I know these things.
Well, I
cheap.
thought you broke it, but then that's why I looked to see if it was still recording. I saw the look in your eyes. You're like,
bloody hell, you yank. What do you do? Absolute bollocks. Tripe. What a tripe.
How long does it take you to learn a new impression?
How long does it I don't know. Some are real quick. Some are take long time.
What's your process? Do you walk around the house just kind of talking?
And you talk, you can hear it in your ear. Then, of course, you got to look in the mirror and, to see how your face looks when you're doing certain things. But I can hear it in my ear, or if it's close enough. Because sometimes it doesn't have to be close enough, Close only is horseshoes and, whatever. Sometimes it can be close and still get the effect that you're looking for. It doesn't have to be a spot on.
Right.
For example, what you're talking about, how some of the over 70,
yes,
if you're doing a club set for a crowd that's over 70s, doing a lot of hipster back of the room references, which I have no problem with. Do you know what I'm saying? But you have to at least acknowledge the audience, for heaven's sakes, or you will die.
Yeah.
A death of deaths. I still play Dallas. I still play Fort Worth, and we still get along very well.
That's good.
Yeah. I can switch gears. Yeah.
Did you ever have an impression that you had to bail on because you just couldn't get it?
Oh, sure. I tried Vince Vaughn a couple of times. And that's one of those deals. If you're not getting it at least close, you need to let it go.
And have you done Owen Wilson now, or is he?
No, I haven't. Never done him on stage. McConaughey, though. I mean, that's close enough for.
Isn't he just a Texan?
No, I mean not just a Texan. His accent is a little different, though.
Okay.
I'm telling you, it's Texas mixed with a little bit of California.
Oh, okay.
I'm telling you.
All right. Well, you would know.
It almost sounds like a little Bill Clinton too. When
Oh, well, you could have fun with that. Then,
sure, you could.
You?
All right. It's almost
He's got a great voice.
Yeah, he does. Sometimes when you're playing the ships, they like to tell you what they loved about your show and what they didn't like about your show, all in one deal. And they go, "Are you the comedian?" This one guy came up to me. He goes, elderly gentleman. He goes, "Are you the comedian?" Yeah. He goes, "Your Jack Nicholson was brilliant. Your Clint Eastwood, not so much. But your Jack Nicholson was brilliant." And I'm like, well, I'm doing more of a parody of Clint if I'm doing, you know what I'm saying? I'm not doing like a spot on, whatever. But everyone has got their opinions.
Yeah.
Everyone has got their opinions.
Well, they've paid a lot of money to go on those
And they paid a lot of money, and but everyone's got their, sometimes I think, no, that was a really good show. And sometimes I'll call a crowd out, be it on a club stage or whatever. Like, you guys... I really deserved a little more than you gave me on that joke. Y'all just kind of, seriously, I will call them out. Totally. And I think when something is, you got to acknowledge it. Don't just keep going.
Right.
Like nothing's awry. Sometimes you just got to break the ice on that.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, I agree completely as well.
Because otherwise it's just awkward. And it's just, Lord knows I've taken the path of, and sometimes the crowd, you just got to talk loud and fast and just get the F through it.
Right.
Sometimes there's some clubs that you've done that were so rowdy and so talking. through all the comics, not just yourself. Do you know what I'm saying? And, and half the time the rooms aren't policed. I mean, like the bouncer ain't going to come over and get in a fight, whatever. You can't say you totally blame him. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, at least come over and tell the guy to shut the fuck up.
Right.
After about the 15th time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
like, throw the guy out already. You know what I'm saying? Because the best, though, is when the crowd turns against the heckler.
Right.
And then really ostracizes him.
Yeah, I think Chris D'Elia had a notorious experience recently where he had a whole chunk of the audience kicked out. There was like a large group of people that wouldn't shut up, and he had them all booted out.
Sometimes when there's a group, like a certain group, like a group of people that come together, it's like they think the show is about them, and everything that you say is a personal joke amongst them. So they have to make comments after everything you say to each other, about so-and-so. Bachelorette parties are notorious for that.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I love bachelorette parties with the beautiful, and everyone's drunk, with the little straws, shall I say, exotic straws. But man, there's been sometimes it's been like, guys, seriously.
Well, this has been a big problem in the UK because when the recession hit, people stopped going out to comedy clubs. And so they started to book them out for special events. And they call them hen parties in England. Is bachelorette parties, is hen parties.
Hen parties.
So they would have the hen parties and the stag parties. And it's basically loads of drunk girls and loads of drunk guys. And it quite changed the face of comedy because it's given the comedian a new demographic to consistently have to deal with, which is large groups of extremely drunk people that are out to really not so much see a comedy show.
Exactly.
They're out to have fun together,
to
and they happen to be at a comedy show.
Right. It's the comedy is secondary.
Right.
Now, if you are knowing that you're going into a deal where there's going to be a group and you're playing just to that group, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like a corporate.
You can be prepared.
They call it a corporate.
Right.
Then that's different. Do you know what I'm saying? But when you're acknowledging a bunch of cross-section of society and you have this one group that makes it all about them, and they will always be that way as far as I'm concerned, because everyone knows inside jokes and you know what I'm saying in this. But the people that have to chime in. I'm not saying in a group. I'm saying even individual hecklers, as it were, if we're getting on this subject, that chime in after every other word that you say. They just got to make a comment and sometimes I'll just go, shut up. You know what I'm saying? I'll just shush already. I don't have a witty heckler retort. I've heard some very clever ones over the years, but it's just like sometimes I'm just like, just enough already. Just shush.
And will they?
Most of the time they know. They know that they're dealing with danger.
So you have a power about you.
I do have a power. And, you mess with the bull, you're going to get the shit. That's all I'm saying. They know not to mess.
Have you got any particular horrible heckler experience where they wrecked a show or nearly wrecked a show? Or
Oh, God, I'd have to think about that.
Are there clubs in America that are notoriously rowdy, or cities that oh boy, I'm playing this town and everybody drinks just a little bit more than everywhere else?
Sure. Sure. I've played some small town gigs where the crowd was great, but they were rowdy. Sometimes they can be rowdy and great, and it just like a heckler can sometimes be a nuisance like hell, and then other times it can even take the show to a different level. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, it can be. Yeah, it absolutely can. It can be a blessing.
Yeah.
Because you earn bigger bonus points for dealing with the heckler, I think.
And sometimes if you don't deal with the heckler, the audience will turn on you because they don't think you have a set.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They'll turn on you. They're just like, they're waiting for you to go mano-a-mano on this heckler.
They see your weakness.
They do. If you don't acknowledge, if it gets to the point, you know what I'm saying? Thankfully, that doesn't happen real often on the ships. Because every once in a while it will, but it's a rare thing. Well, that is the ships that I'm playing.
Right.
There's some cruise ships where it's a much younger party. I'm sure it's a little different story, because I've heard stories from other comics.
Right.
Where it's just nonstop party and, the booze cruise and all that.
What about the crowds where there might be a particular group of just really drunk people who don't mean any harm?
I know.
They're just super drunk.
I'm familiar with that too.
Yeah, and how do you
don't
deal?
want to be mean to them because they're just, they're just having a good time. They're just, but they can't turn it off. The drunk switch is on full. so they can't.
Yeah, so how do you deal with that when people are just commenting in a drunk way? Oh my God, you're so funny. Oh my God. Because they're just out of their skull, but they're probably a very nice
they're
person.
Out of their skull.
Yeah.
And sometimes out of their tree, if you will. You do it diplomatically. You do it diplomatically. Like, sometimes you even say to, I know you're having a good time. I know. I know. I get it. Just, I got to do the rest of the show. They're going to get mad at me if I don't, keep doing,
So you try and really win them over.
You try
really,
to
like
go
friend.
because they're just, because they're not being, evil.
No, they're just being drunk.
They're just being drunk and having a good time. And, then, you run into some where it's just like they are being drunk and they want to have a good time, but they don't they don't care about you doing your job or not. It's about them. You know what I'm saying? Well, I don't think, hey, what the hell? You know what I'm saying? I remember that club one time, I had to tell him to be quiet over and over and over again. He goes, we're just having a good time. What are you, from New York or something? This was down south. He goes, and I'm like, well, yeah, and I'm like, I don't even understand that. But I'm just shush with you. And then we ended up having to kick the guy out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But it was just like.
Did he go easily?
No, he had some words to say. Of course, you know what I'm saying.
I bet you got a big cheer from the audience when. No,
actually, at that particular time, I was a doorman.
Oh,
it was I wasn't doing stand up that night. I was actually a doorman.
So you're reporting on other people's experiences right now.
No, I'm reporting on my own as a stand up. But that particular night, to be totally honest, that particular night was as a doorman.
I think it's important we're clear with our listeners.
I think we need to be very clear.
What experiences are being recounted here, Jeffrey?
My experience, I have plenty to choose from. I was on stage one night and this lady, this is in Texas, this is in Houston, at my home club since I was 19. Do you know what I'm saying? The home club, 18 was the Comedy Workshop. That was my home club. Then that closed down. Then there was the Comedy Showcase, which is still there. And the owners, the former owners, Danny and Blanca Martinez, who I've known for years and years and years, my birthday was the day they got married.
Okay.
So there was a little kismet there to us. Anyway, I was doing my show one night, and that crowd and I were just getting along famously. It was just give and take. It was like boom, pop, boom, boom, boom. And here comes this one drunk lady smoking a cigarette, just an evil cuss on the inside of her, just a bitter
an evil cuss
just on the inside of her, just a bitter, and she made snide remark, then would make another snide remark, and I ignored it the first couple of times, and after a while she'd wait till I got a laugh or something, and then she made some snide remark or something, and I go, okay. And I go, that's it. I go, what's your name? Then she clammed up. She didn't want to say nothing. And because she was throwing a wrench in an otherwise lovely exchange.
A masterful show.
I'm not saying it was a masterful show. I'm just saying the audience and I were getting along very well.
It was a good show.
We were appreciating each other.
Yeah.
There was love on both sides of the footlights.
Chemistry.
There was total chemistry.
Yeah.
Anyway, you have a bit of there's some condescension in some of your chemistry, right? That's what they call that. Anyway, Miss Natalie.
Love on either side of the footlights.
There was
fine, we'll use your analogy.
There's love on both sides of footlights. Okay. There was such love in that room.
Okay, I got it.
Now, can we have the tally? Go ahead. Let's see a Tiffany. Anyway, so the deal is, anyway.
You said, what's your name?
I said, what is your name? No, and she just clammed up. She didn't say nothing. Like I said, no. You want to play? What's your name? I want to, find out. And she didn't say anything. Still, she just like I didn't. And I go, which one's the husband? Who's the lucky guy? Which one's the lucky guy? And her name, I forgot what her name was. I want to say it was drunk bitch, but I don't know what it was. I think it was Gretchen, or I don't know what the hell her name was. But anyway, she said so-and-so. And I use this old joke. It's an old hacky joke, but I went into the hack bag for a second for a purpose to shut this down, because it was just a wrench constantly. And I said, Gretchen, whatever your name is, I said, you know what? If I could have you just once, I'd be like every other guy at the trailer park. And the place went crazy because it's an old line. I will confess to that now. This was years ago. It was an old line, but she didn't say another peep. out of me. And the crowd just went, bah! They just, because they were waiting at this point spoke of earlier for me to say something to her. To man up.
Yeah.
Because, mind you, this was years ago. I was but a boy. And so it was, so it was just, and she didn't say another word after that. She just clammed. I mean, thank goodness, because everything out of her mouth was vile and it was mean spirited. It was like, it just, there was enough drinks in her to where, it gets mean after a while.
She was a real cuss.
She was a real cuss. That's a good word, I think.
So my question for you is,
Yes.
you know how some comics are a little bit envious of musical acts? Like if the guitar comic, they'll be a little bit or possibly resentful because they think, it's really hard to follow, like a guitar comic. Because the audience, let's face it, just loves guitar and songs and music and stuff. Have you found any comics kind of getting like their nose out of joint because they're envious of you and your impressions, which are so crowd pleasing?
No, the other comics used to just get pissed if I went over my time.
I see. Okay.
That's and I still sometimes when the audience is rolling and it's kicking and it's just boom, 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 boom. It's just so hard to tear yourself off that. When you're coming up, like in the feature act position,
Yeah.
And so there was one or two headliners. They were nice about it, but now being the headliner, I know even that 2 and 3 minutes that the other comic is going into your time, that's valuable minutes.
Right.
Because, you want to get that established when there's still, you know what I'm saying? Because by the end of the show, they might peter out, or a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It really, those are valuable minutes.
Yeah,
those
that's right.
Those couple of minutes that they're chewing into.
Well, there's a time where people suddenly get tired.
Yeah.
At the end of the night, they just suddenly lose their will to laugh because they're really genuinely
They've
tired.
just been laughing all evening.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and then some, well, if you were the true comedian, you could hold them until, so-and-so. No, I've seen comics, to where the crowd just gets kind of, they like the comic. They, they've been laughing the whole time, but they just kind of, yeah.
I read your bio today on an agency website. I found it. And Jerry Lewis has a quote about you.
Yes.
Do you know what the quote is?
Of course.
Tell me the quote.
One of the craziest people I've ever seen in my whole life.
So where does that come from?
When I was on the telethon in 2000.
How did he come to think of this?
I don't know. I never asked him, but I was on the telethon in 2000 and I did my 4.5 minutes is what I had. And at the very end I was doing my John Wayne in Chinese. And I could see he was laughing over at his desk because the lights were turned down on him, while I was doing my deal. But as I was doing the John Wayne walk, thank you, John Biner, for that one. I could see that he was laughing, and I said, I even saw a Jerry Lewis movie in Chinese, and I go, Chang Ling Chow Mun Tai with the thing is waiting, lady. And I start bouncing up and down like he used to do back in the day. And the camera cut back to him laughing. It was priceless.
That's
great. It was just like he's one of the idols, And I ended with the 4.5 minute wedding ceremony. And I go, good night, everyone. And the band starts playing me. And he goes, thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Oh, he's nuts. He's totally nuts. He's one of the craziest people I've ever seen in my whole life. So that went on the bio, and that 4.5 minutes went on my demo reel as soon as I could get my hands on it, which took about 6 months, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
So that him introducing me was huge.
You know what else it says on your bio that's really impressive? I just love seeing this. It says 120 minutes of material. Now, when they're saying that, do they mean as far as cruise ships that you would do, for example, 3 different sets of 30 minutes or 40 minutes?
Let's see, 120 minutes.
Because you wouldn't do a 2-hour show, would you?
I could do, no, it would be two different 45-minute sets, which I don't do very often.
Okay.
Because that's
a lot
time
of material
in anyone's language, especially on a ship when it's very possible a portion of the audience does not speak fluent English. It's very possible, they come from this country or they speak a little English, and I could probably do more than that if I put all my stuff in with club stuff, and that was mainly for the ships. But the club stuff, what I call my quote unquote club set, I could do longer than that if I really put it together. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but
yeah.
You have a tendency when you go just to keep your gems, and you got this amount of time, and you know exactly how long it takes, and you know exactly where it is, and do you know what I'm saying? You've got your set show. Now there is some room for improv, or there's some room for ad-libbing when something arises in the crowd, or
Right.
if you can make something funny and just go off on that, which I think is a form of improv. But
Well, absolutely.
but I'm not like schooled in improv, because to me it's
You're not Drew Carey.
no, but I met him though. He's a very nice guy. It's a different art form, and people think it's the same thing. People
Right.
think if you can do stand up, you can do improv. No, not necessarily. No,
No,
I'm
I
giving
would
much
say
props
no.
to my improvers out there.
Yeah.
Much props.
With all this immense travel that you've done, I mean, do you ever get lonely?
Yeah, I think sometimes. Sometimes you do.
And how does that manifest? Do you sulk?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes, it goes back to reading, and it goes back to praying, and it goes back to,
This dodgy meditation
this dodgy
that you
meditation.
call praying.
Just because it's not, it doesn't have the exact, whatever syllabus of what meditation should be. It's still, how dare I call it meditation? It's amazing how busy you can keep for having so few shows, just with social stuff and just with, going to the gym and going to just doing things. And plus you got to take care of all your business when on land.
Yeah, it's really hard to keep in touch with land when you're on a cruise ship.
That's a bit of a challenge, but in the casts, you'll hang out with the cast in the ship or whatever. You got these beautiful young ladies, dancers in the shows and such, and you feel like you're old enough to be their uncle. Do you know what I'm saying? But I don't say that. I go, if it ever comes up, you got a young dancer. How old are you? And I'm old enough to be your stepdaddy. And I go, shh, don't tell mommy. But anyway, yeah, because it's uncle is creepy, stepdaddy is at least nefarious.
Or possibly more creepy.
Or
depending.
possibly more, but I'm going the other way on that. I'm going, stepdaddy is at least has some humor to it. Uncle is just like, Cousin Eddie. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you seem definitely in a really good place now. Like
the
I can
most
just
part,
tell.
yeah.
Like you look really healthy, and this green stuff clearly.
Again, I got off the green stuff, a long time ago. And then, but I still take now and again. But now I'm going to start getting back on a different one now.
But you're doing something healthy, because I can tell by your skin. I can tell by your complexion.
Yeah.
It looks very healthy. So I know you're going to the gym,
Yeah.
but you're doing something that's healthy.
I'm not giving away all my secrets.
Fine, Mr. Glycolic.
I don't do it all the time, but I do it about twice a year, maybe.
Do you moisturize?
No, not really like I should. Every once in a while I do. But I mean, not like I should.
Have you got anything on your skin right now?
No.
Any like toner or anything?
I got nothing on my
Okay.
skin right now.
Sunblock?
No.
'Cause you're not freckly.
And I really should.
Yeah, you're not freckly.
And I lay out in the sun. When I was a little kid, I used to get tan. I was in the sun all the time.
Yeah, how are you not sun
I
damaged?
don't know.
You were roommates for a while, if I remember correctly, with Pablo Francisco.
Yes.
You guys still friends?
I guess so.
Do you keep in touch?
No.
What happened?
I don't know. I hadn't heard from him in years.
Because you were kind of close for a while.
Yeah, we were like 4 years. We were roommates.
Yeah, I remember
And
you.
we used to perform together, do duo stuff all the time and
Well, I
everything.
remember you telling me that you used to borrow each other's material.
Yeah, it would do that. We would, we were like a couple of little kids. Sometimes we'd even, get in arguments over who came up with what, because we used to write together and stuff.
Yeah, well, that's tricky.
It is tricky, but
Yeah.
but no, he's still a buddy. But I mean, we just haven't talked in 5 years ago, I would say. He was just never one to, to like call up. Like I'd call him after I moved out. I would call him up, hey, I'm in town, and do you wanna go grab something to eat or something like that, whatever. And I wouldn't hear anything back, So he's just not that type. He's
Not
just,
a keepy and touchy guy.
No, he's just, and that's fine. He's just not that type. You know what I'm saying? The 4 years it was a lot of fun when I look back. That was just so much fun. I mean, gosh,
Yeah.
you're in your late 20s, in LA, playing the improvs all the time. And we respect each other's, what the other one did,
Yeah.
I would watch Pablo some nights. We'd be doing a week together, and sometimes I'd just watch him and I would forget how good he is. I even told him that once. I said, I forget how good you are sometimes, because he's just, he's great.
Do you find that your friends you keep in touch with are in the comedy world, or are they civilian?
The friends that I keep in touch with are civilians, but they're few and far between. I mean, I have a lot of buddies. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, friends, like there's a handful of them.
There's a handful of people you'll drive 1.5 hours from.
There's a
Mission
handful of people.
Viejo.
Not only that, but switch my plane. And for the record, I just came over. I hadn't seen you in so long. Just came over to have lunch or dinner with you, and just to say, "Hey, Natalie, how you doing?" Because I hadn't seen you in like 4 years, let alone podcast or no podcast. In fact, if you remember correctly, I was like, I don't even know if I want to do a podcast. I'd be fine just having drinks and saying, "Hey, you see where I'm at now?"
Yeah. So are you saying you feel a little bit hijacked?
No, not a little hijack, but this is definitely. I mean, the microphone's all over the place and the thing. And I'm not wearing headphones, but you are, though. But I don't like wearing headphones when I do radio. And all those clubs where they always have you go out to the local radio station at 6 in the morning or 5 in the morning or whatever. And it's cold and you got to, you got to do impressions for the show. Yeah, Jeff Burghardt's going to be tonight at so-and-so and this. And you're doing your bits. And
how do you fare with all that small talk?
I'm fine with it. But just... when they lead you into a bit, some are great, and some are just like they think you're after their job, and so they won't shut up and let you do your bit.
What about on your personal life front? Like, have you found it really hard to get any kind of serious relationship when you travel so constantly?
It does present a challenge.
And you being such a natural player and all.
Oh God, here we go. I told you, every once in a while, a lunar eclipse will happen. I call it a lunar eclipse. I enjoy being around people. I like being solitude as well. That's really important. I think you have to have a good mix of both.
Yeah. When's the last time you had a serious girlfriend?
I had a serious relationship with a girl from the Ukraine.
Okay.
She was a violist. She is a violist. She's working on another ship for a different cruise line across the ocean.
Violist.
A violist, yeah. From Ukraine.
Different than a violinist.
Yep.
Okay.
It's a couple of notes lower than a violin. We fell in love, no question. We dated for like a year and a half. Now, that doesn't sound like a long time, but on ships, that's a long time. And
would you only see her on ships or?
When we were working together on the ship, I was on for a few months.
Oh,
and that's how we get to know it. Other than that, I flew to the Ukraine 3 different times and tried to get her on the ships, but there was always some kind of stuff with the visa. But I'm on the road. We figured it out. 300 and like I said, it was 19 days, 319 out of California.
Right. Could you guys have gotten married and her come to America?
I just was searching my heart and I'm just like, it just wasn't, I cannot explain it, but it was just like, it wasn't the right time or something. I have never in my life cried over a woman as much as I have her. She's the dearest woman that I know, period.
Could it be something you could revisit in the future? I mean,
like I'm
things
saying.
change.
Yeah, like I'm saying.
Get your ass back to the Ukraine. It sounds wonderful.
We went to 3 times to the Ukraine, and then I flew to the Maldives.
Okay.
Which is 19 hours in the air.
Wow.
That's a long way. Because I told her, I said, I will. I told her, and she, told her, I said, I will fly anywhere around this world to meet you. That's what I said. And she hits me with that Ukrainian accent, Jeffrey, don't do D. Why you do D? You know what I'm saying? Oh my God, when she hits me with that. Don't get me wrong. If I'm doing something wrong, she'll let me know. But, because the Ukrainian women are, they're sweet, but there's a tough side to them too.
Well, I think all of that part of Europe, they have to have a toughness because life's really hard.
Seriously. Like my Bruce, who's very much a, study of history. He goes, Jeff, I have to tell you. He goes, the Ukrainians are the toughest motherfuckers on this planet. He goes, they're the toughest people. In World War II, they did this and fought this and, just with bars and with boards, you know what I'm saying? That's all they had to fight. They're just tough.
Yeah.
They're just, it's very strong people.
Yeah, war will make people tough.
And the women are beautiful. They're strong and the women are beautiful and the Eastern European.
Yeah. How old was she?
She's 29.
Oh, Jeffrey.
Let
the judging begin.
She's 29 and I am not.
Right.
So.
Did that cause any issues?
Oh.
Because, you like Justin Timberlake just as much as the next guy.
I used to make a joke. I used to say, when you are trying to impress a girl that is much younger than yourself, you will hear things come out of your mouth you never thought you would say. Things like, I love Glee. Every once in a while it would. But, her dad told her to get someone who's a little older than the average bird.
Yeah.
Than her age.
Yeah,
You know what
I
I'm saying?
don't think there's a problem with that either. My mum even used to say to me, it's better to be an old man's princess than a young man's slave.
Yeah.
So that's that
So that's that.
for now.
For
And-
now. Yeah,
and
we'll put a dot,
yeah,
dot, dot
yeah,
for now.
dot, dot, put the ellipses there. But it seems like, your career, it's so you're one of the few people who has control over your career because you can book yourself up as much as you want. So it sounds like it's not a huge burning priority for you to go settling down and having a family or anything like that.
No, I think some people are meant to be, some people have a deep desire in them to get married. And some people have, men and women,
Yeah.
some just, want to have kids and
Yeah.
want to do that, and some just, I don't want to say born to do that, but they're
It's in your blood.
dialed in that way.
Yeah, yeah. It's
know what
part
I'm
of who
saying?
you are. It's in
Yeah.
your nature. Absolutely.
And there's not, well, that's wrong. That's right. Well, that's wrong. There is no right or wrong. And that's what you got to listen to your heart. You just do. I know that sounds cheesy, but you
No,
do.
it doesn't. I'm a big believer. I believe that the heart is like a compass.
Oh,
It's your
absolutely.
compass.
It's a rudder.
Absolutely.
It's a rudder. Because there was times that I didn't listen to that heart. My inner voice was telling me something. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do this. You know what I'm saying? And there was a time that I didn't listen to it a time or two. And sure enough, it just went to shit because I didn't listen to it. You know what I'm saying? So it teaches you.
Of course, you haven't even, because we haven't seen each other for so long, you haven't heard about my crazy sci-fi experience that I had in 2012, which just in a very brief nutshell, I had my blood pressure crashed and I started to speak a lot of scientific information for quite a long time. And I covered kind of everything. I mean, everything, the body, the universe, our senses, evolution.
Your blood pressure crashed.
We went really low and I went ice cold. And sort of passed out, except I was still conscious, but my body was, I was ice cold. And I had two people with me, but I spent the next 16 months researching all of this information that I'd spoken about. And a lot of it, I had a lot of religious people, as I would talk about it with people, a lot of people who read the Bible would say, well, that's in the Bible, what you've just said. And then what I found fascinating, because I was studying the science side of it, like quantum physics and science, and the overlap with what was touching upon in the Bible was really fascinating, because I wasn't going a religious route with it at all,
Sure.
my research, but it was overlapping big time. But that was a whole interesting thing that happened.
I bet.
Yeah. I've got a 20,000 word document now on all the stuff that came to me, all the information that I spoke about. And it continued for several days between 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. I would wake up and I'd literally get like this download of information of stuff that I knew nothing about. And it was all scientific stuff about the nature of time, how
Jeez.
time works. Seriously, and I would write it
into
all
something,
down.
girl.
Yeah. When I looked up, though, it's everything that was coming to me was all what modern physicists are saying. And there was an overlap with a famous quote of Bill Hicks's when he talks about matter is just energy slowed down. And that message also had come to me, and I saw it visually 2 nights in a row. First, I saw a piece of paper falling, and I could see every position of the paper in space falling, kind of like the Matrix bullet time.
Wow.
Look, this is super sci-fi. I mean, had I not had two people with me, it would have been very hard to tell anybody because I, of course, sound completely nuts, but they were with me and saw it. Then the next night, I saw this drop of water going into a pond. Only the little circles of water that radiate out were going so imperceptibly slow. And I would feel this interpretation of the information, and the interpretation was that our time is incredibly slowed down. You're giving me such a quirky smile.
No, it's just, wow.
But what jogged my memory to bring this up is that I had this overwhelming feeling that there is a great intelligence in our heart. And when I went to research all of this, sure enough, I found out that they're saying now that the heart is controlling the brain, not the other way around, that the larger electrical impulses are coming off of the heart and feeding information from the heart. There's an intelligence in the heart. And so all those people who say, follow your heart, there is a deep truth to that. And the guiding principle of it was just to be a good person, and that you know if you're being a good person because you have this feeling in your heart of goodness, and it literally is a very powerful compass.
Some people have it. Some people are amiss of this.
Wow.
Some people, I honestly think there's a few that were born without a conscience.
Or disconnection from it.
Or disconnect, or so far removed from it, like they wouldn't recognize it if they saw it.
Well, also, I think sometimes mental illness can play a big role, and even medications. I mean, so many of the tragedies of late, they've discovered so many people taking antidepressants.
In '94, they put me on Prozac, I remember. I didn't do a damn thing for me.
Really? Why'd they put you on, for starters?
For, I think, depression or for OCD or whatever. Yeah, but it was, I remember it didn't, I didn't think it had an effect on me. But, you know, a lot of other people use it. That was the hip drug at the time, you know, in the early 90s, you know.
Right.
Prozac.
I think a lot of people still take Prozac now.
And if it works for them, great.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it genuinely helps. I mean, in 2001, I had a very almost catastrophic depression, and I went to see a doctor, and when he thought I was in danger of hurting myself, he put me on medication. And I do think it helped. I think it took those neural pathways from a very bad place and helped redirect them. But then I did slowly wean off my medication. That's about a year later. Yeah. And I definitely was aware that I didn't quite feel myself on it. Now, that's just me. I think a lot of people, they can't tell and they feel great, and that's awesome. For me, I felt a little bit like I was on a drug, but I really do think it helped me get out of the terrible place that I was in and just helped me rewire my brain. And, you know, touch wood, I haven't needed anything like that since.
Yeah, I used to be on different stuff. You know, in my 20s were rough for me, but...
Why?
They just were. I just emotionally, spiritually, just... I don't know. I call them my black dog years.
Well, why? Why? Was it, do you think because you were on the road and you didn't have a close circle of support around you?
I think it was probably that, and you're broke all the time, you know, because, you know, when you're not making a huge amount of money, you know what I'm saying? When you're broke all the time, it has a tendency to wear you down.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then spiritually speaking, I was always trying my best to be like Mr. Holy and Mr., you know, with God and one right with God. And so, and if you are any of the religious sects, you know that if you strive to be holy, to be good, to be right with God and stuff, sometimes you'll find other forces will come against you in that.
Try and steer you away.
Try to steer you away, other forces like, you know, other stuff. Oppressive forces, you know, not necessarily visible.
Like comedians.
Like, no, I'm talking more nefarious. I'm talking more like spiritual speaking, you know, like stuff.
What are you talking about? You mean like feeling a presence or something? An actual presence?
like fighting, you know, obsessive compulsiveness.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And just like bad thoughts. And if you talk to anyone that's like been through it or religious or, you know, spiritual, very spiritual, they'll know exactly what you're talking about. Oppressiveness, you know, on your thoughts and on your, you know, whatever. There was, and, you know, I didn't have like a deliverance per se, but I do remember I met this friend of mine on an airplane, and we're still friends to this day. She's very Christian, very devout.
Okay.
So I'm Christian, but I'm not quite as devout as she is. Do you know what I'm saying? So we're talking religious, we're talking this, we're talking Elvis, we're talking, you name it. So she says to me, there's a pastor that I see when I'm in Dallas. Pastor Robert, he's from Zimbabwe. Yeah. I said, next time I'll come and see him. And I did, because I really try to be to my word. I went, and we went to the deal, and it was one of those sermons.
Okay.
Where it's especially for you. And you know it's for you.
Okay.
You know it in here.
Okay, yeah.
This heart we were talking about earlier.
To be here at this moment.
That sermon
right.
was for you. He is speaking directly to you.
Got it.
With your situation.
Yes.
It's one of those. Okay. And then after, you know, the service, me and him had private time when I was telling him about all these. I get these awful thoughts about God and about this and that, you know, oppressive thoughts, you know what I'm saying? Like that, like about, it was always about God and this and, oh, what if I thought this thought, you know, would God forgive me? And this, it was constant.
Like
this.
a fear-based type of
they
thing.
call it scrupulosity
Oh.
in the Catholic Church, or in the church.
Okay.
Meaning like where you obsess over a certain sin, like, you know, if I think bad thoughts against God, you know, and I'm not trying to, you understand what I'm saying? It's just
No.
intrusive thoughts.
Well, and when you're told not to do something,
And
you
then
can't
it's
help
OCD.
but think about it.
It's
right.
total OCD. But I tell you what, though, he prayed with me after that. And he put his hands, you know, it wasn't like a complete deliverance, you know, like on TV. But I'm telling you what, he prayed some shit off of me. No question about it. I was not completely healed of that, but he prayed some stuff off of me.
Oh, that's great. What a great chance encounter in the air to be somehow led to this person that could play a significant role.
Absolutely. And he even said,
Yeah.
he said, you meeting Jody, in his Zimbabwe accent, he goes, it was divine providence.
Yeah.
He goes, it was a divine appointment. He said that very matter-of-factly.
Well, you don't want to have those worries. Worrying's the worst.
Oh, it's the worst. And it's just, you know, and you're trying your best not to think that stuff. You know, John Bunyan, who, not Paul Bunyan, not to be confused. John Bunyan was this Christian writer from like the 1600s, and he was a preacher, and he went through the same deal. You know what I'm saying? Just these, you know, because he was very much a devout believer in this, and he would just get assaulted with these thoughts and with these whatever.
So is it literally like where you know you're supposed to be thinking a certain way, therefore you can't help?
It's more intrusive than anything. You know, it's just blasphemous thoughts. It's just when you're a devoutly Christian person, why am I thinking this shit? Do you know what I'm saying?
Like cursing in your head kind of thing?
That
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Doing naughty stuff with ladies.
No, that one never really bothered me. But no, what I'm saying, though, 2, 3, 4. But what I'm saying is that those thoughts, you know,
Okay.
the religious stuff.
Just anything you're not supposed to be thinking of,
Just
basically.
about in terms of God and, you know, whatever. And so, yeah, but he prayed some stuff off of me, no question.
Good.
Yeah.
So you're all right now?
I think so. Yes. Yes. For the most, it's, you know, shit, I've dealt with this for years. You know, everyone's got something they deal with. Everyone.
Yeah.
And some people, it's OCD, which is what, you know, because when I was a little kid, I used to have it real bad. And you'll find with artistic people that it's pretty common. They're quirky and they have, you know, like I used to wash my hands all the time, like when I was a little kid, like all the time.
Okay.
You know, OCD. Then it'll just kind of go away. You just kind of grow out of it sometimes. Same with the, you know, the horrid thoughts.
I think you can never underestimate the value of peace of mind.
No, you cannot. And I'll tell you something, just knowing when you lay your head down on that, whatever else is, if you have, as cliche as it sounds, if you have that peace in your heart, meaning like when you know you're
good,
you're cool, you know you're right with God, you know there is no better place to be. I can tell you. I remember. Now this is my fleshly side thinking.
Okay, bring it on.
I mean, I've seen some videos where you go, well, it wouldn't be the worst being this guy, but I'm just saying that's fleshly bullshit talking.
Right,
but I'm talking about deep down, there is no better place, because when you've lost that and you can't get it back, which is where I was at in my 20s. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, I couldn't get it back for a long time, like years.
Yeah, and that would be very,
Only
especially
moments,
painful.
only brief moments, and then so those brief moments is what keeps you going.
Right.
You know, because then you go, okay, it is possible. It's just, you know, Johnny Cash said one time, he goes, it's a perfect peace. He goes, it's very hard to hold on to, but it's a perfect peace, is what he says. You know, still, I'm a little nutty, but I'm better now at, you know, in my early 40s. We'll go there. I'll give you that grace, that gratis, you know, than I was in my 20s. The only problem is we live in such a youth culture, to the point where one thinks if you're past 35, you're of no value or you're nothing. Do you know what I'm saying? And I can just think of all these people that are just like, they didn't come of age until they hit 40.
Right.
You know, I can name you quite a few of them, actually, but you don't think about them. Even amongst comedians, I could name you some that really just did not come of age until they were older. Not everyone's supposed to be world successful and famous when they're 21.
Right.
Because most people can't handle it. We see it over and over and over again.
Right. Well, it also, especially in something like stand-up, it takes years to develop your craft.
You would think.
You know, in most cases.
Sometimes they get it, you know, really young. You know, they get it pretty young. And then sometimes it takes them, you know, 20 years. Then they're an overnight sensation.
Well, I know you're in no rush, but
right.
what does the future hold for you if you were to cast a little wish out there?
One of these days, I know everyone says be a wacky neighbor on a sitcom or something, but I think just in the very back of my mind, I just think that would be the funnest job, to be like the neighbor on a sitcom.
You want to be a wacky neighbor.
Or the wacky neighbor, or
Okay.
just the goofball neighbor. I just think that would be so much fun.
Well, perhaps you will play a wacky neighbor
Who knows?
in the future.
Who knows? I'm in no rush, but I just think that would be like the funnest job to have. And I've talked to friends she's an actress on West Wing,
Okay.
and she was telling me, a lot of the ins and outs, and
Good.
that seemed to be pretty fun, and she still drove the same car, she didn't get all, even though that was like a top show,
She kept her roots.
Yeah, she did. I said, now that you're on TV and stuff, I mean, do you have people hitting you up for money all the time? And she goes, no, that's one of the reasons I still drive this same car.
Yeah, that's
what I'm saying?
smart. Put people off the trail.
It's just, because,
See, you'll have that Nissan Sentra.
oh gosh.
You'll
Oh,
put
gosh,
people off the trail.
It has been a good car, no question. But I think it might be time for me I don't know.
Keep the car. So it's like...
An heirloom? Kind of like
I think you should keep it so it's putting that out in the universe like your buddy on the West Wing, that you're going to land a role and get a ton of money, and you'll need to drive this little car around so people don't hit you up for money.
I think you're wrong. No, I
Okay,
think
fine.
But Billy Crystal said that the old car that he used to drive to gigs in, he still kept it in his backyard. As a reminder.
Yeah.
And it all had grass growing around it and the whole thing. He just kept it in his backyard. He never sold it as a reminder, he said.
Yeah, that's
Interesting,
nice.
huh?
Well, Jeff, we've come full circle, and I have loved this. Thank you so much for doing this.
This was much easier than I thought it was going to be.
I hope whatever good stuff lurks out there comes to you soon, even though you're not in a rush.
Thank you.
Jeff Burghardt. What a journey from a 97 Nissan Sentra to oppressive forces. A public service announcement from beyond to follow your heart. And a message to keep your old car. I am loving bringing these shows to you guys. Please take a moment to rate and review on iTunes. And if you want to see photos, clips, neat stuff, visit thegrayescape.com or nataliegray.com. That's a wrap. What does your heart say? Catch you next time on The Gray Escape.